Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Today we're looking at defensive mistakes from beginner to Supersonic Legend. I'm going to be looking at videos from all different ranks talking about how things break down defensively and how you can spot these issues in your own game and continue to work on them and rank up in Rocket League. Let's go. So I want to talk over these clips exactly the way that I would do it if this were my ranked game. We're going to look through these plays through the eyes of just one player and talk about not just what they're doing, but what their teammates are doing and how they're interpreting that information too, instead of looking at the entire team as a whole. I believe that, especially in 3v3, almost no goal is scored by the sole mistake of any one player. You can look at almost any goal that gets scored on a team, and it's always the result of multiple mistakes. So we're starting today in Gold 3, and honestly, sometimes these lobbies can be more difficult than the higher ranked ones to pinpoint exact problems because there's so much chaos going into every single moment. So if I were to just let this clip play through, you'd notice a lot of things going wrong mechanically. We've got a teammate driving backwards, we're not rotating to the back post, kind of an awkward flip there for the save. And then the way they come back into this play is awkward too. But I don't really care about any of that for a gold player. What I do care about though, and this is something I see with a lot of players, is that even though this person is rotating and they're making space for their teammates, they're still constantly moving their car's momentum towards the ball. It's like they're tethered to it. And what'll happen when you're constantly inching yourself up towards the ball like this, as soon as a play slows down, there's gonna be congestion. You're gonna double up with a teammate. And you can see that happening here in the midfield. This player probably would have had a shot right there if they had stayed back a bit. And then the same here, this would have been a better opportunity if they were coming from an angle that was further back, if they had just tapped on the brakes a bit. And then you can look at this flip and say, oh, this is a mistake and this is what causes the goal. And that's true. But I think at higher ranks, you do have to go up for this and show some presence somehow. So I'm not going to fault the player for trying here. And one final note, I think players get really confused when they hear messaging like, oh, if you're gold, you just need to practice mechanics to rank up. I think people hear that and they feel like they need to go practice air dribbles and tight angles and all these kinds of high aerial tricks, when really what people mean when they say that golds just need to work on mechanics is they need to understand how to operate their car independently from the ball. So if they see a situation like this, you need the mechanics to know how to curve your car outwards to come in on an angle that you can get a shot. You don't need the mechanics to be able to hit a tight angle powerful shot like this. Just know how to operate your car and move it independently of the ball. Okay, as I was going through and editing, I felt like I could have done a little bit better job explaining this. So I set up this shot to imitate the situation we just saw in game, and the point I was trying to make is that you don't need to learn all the different mechanics that it takes to be able to shoot something at this angle with power. The thing you need to be focusing on is if I mirror the path that the person in our replay took and shoot it like this, it takes the same amount of time to approach the ball at this angle as it does to stay further back and get out wider so that you can use your boost to come into the ball with more speed and a better angle. Hopefully that helps clear things up. Okay, moving into the defensive rotations of Diamond 2. And what I want to focus on in this clip is the blue team's defensive response to losing possession in this moment. So we start off where I think a lot of Diamond 2 players start off, staring at both of their teammates, driving down the wall while they're sprinting towards the middle for a pass that will never come. I don't really care about how these two players ended up on the sidewall right next to each other like this. I see this a lot in Diamond where you have lobbies that look relatively structured, and then sometimes you'll have teams with players that are just total wild cards all over the place. They're hard to read what they're doing, and I guess that's something you have to watch out for at this level. So typically when you see both teammates charging downfield together like this, you want to stay as far away from this play as you possibly can, unless it really looks like they're going to be successful in getting a slow center. But that doesn't look like it's the case here, and the player we're watching is probably going to be pushed too far up when this possession inevitably falls flat. I do think this player would have been rewarded if they had made the more conservative play and stayed back, because it gets cleared right into the space they would have been holding. But the ball is going to kind of scramble out from this point, and let's watch how they react. So I don't mind the touch from the teammate to put it out to the side like this. And the player we're watching it responds appropriately to start approaching it so that, the other team doesn't get a free possession. But something seems odd about the way they go up to the ball. They can see the player on the orange team approaching it pretty early on, and they still take a really wide arc. I think they're looking for the full boost on the side, but this player should know they're getting beat if they go for the boost here and go directly to the ball so that they don't just give it to the orange team for free. And that's exactly what happens. It goes straight behind them. And even worse is that they flip into nothing, and now they're going to be stuck downfield with no boost. The initial spot was actually a really good position if you fake pressure here and force the orange player to push the ball behind you, because that's going to create a free clear for your teammate. And if you're at about half field, it's pretty likely they'll be able to make a pass or something to you. And because they don't have any vision of the opposing team on their rotation back to defense, they see a situation like this where it looks like the ball is just kind of spilled into midfield, and the blue team's third man is running upfield because they haven't read the situation. And the player's going to panic naturally. They send it off to the side. Whether or not the orange team was going to get a free shot there doesn't matter. What matters is that this player didn't have the information to make that decision, and instead they had to go for a panic touch, which is almost never going to result in a strong play for your team. I don't necessarily disagree with the decision to follow up their panic touch here, but it doesn't surprise me that neither blue player in this situation had the mechanics as diamonds to quickly turn onto this and get a clear. And with the blue team kind of scrambling, that's all it takes for our player to get caught out by a strong backboard touch. I think they probably had the mechanics to make this clear, but they got confused because they were waiting for the ball to catch up to them, and they missed because they weren't able to match their speed well to the ball before they made the approach. And I wanted to go over this replay specifically because even though every player on the blue team shared some responsibility for the goal happening, I mean, all of them made some pretty obvious mistakes, we can still look at this player individually and talk about how they're interpreting information and making decisions and come up with ways that they could have prevented so many back-to-back unfavorable positions. Okay, moving on, we're in Champ 2 now. This is a great clip that shows how when you get into the champion ranks, players have built up enough consistency and speed that you sometimes need to be a little bit creative to outplay them and create opportunities. But there are other times, especially in threes, when a boring, predictable rotation is better for your teammates than doing something creative that might open up an opportunity unless you're really on the same page. That's exactly what happens here. So we start off with our player getting ready to receive a ball in the offensive corner, and they realize pretty quickly they're not going to get a clean touch on it, so they back off. At this point, they're assuming that the other player is going to clear it up the wall into them, and they're probably right, except the player whiffs, and they're going to get thrown off enough by the whiff that they decide to circle back and stay close in the play, hoping to get a 50-50 on the next incoming player. And the player should recognize that as soon as they turn up, they've created the potential for congestion and rotation, since there's probably two players behind him waiting for this move, and now they're going to have to slow down and adjust to this slow play. So if I'm this player, I'm wanting to make some kind of touch that goes out for another teammate to receive and then get out as soon as possible. Instead, you can see they just make a 50, it goes out of their control, and because their teammate was so thrown off, it now is going behind them. And don't get me wrong, the teammate definitely makes a mistake here by being stuck on the wall and not being able to challenge. But in solo queue, we have a responsibility to help our teammates predict our movements. And so with that in mind, this player definitely should have been more responsible when handling the ball in the corner, especially because even if you win the ball here, almost every option is pretty much going to be a slow play, and their defenders are already ready. So there's not much point in trying to build an attack from here, and this little bit of confusion is enough for the blue team to get scored on. And last but not least, we've got defensive positioning from Supersonic Legends. You're going to see how quickly at this level sustained pressure can get counterattacked with just one small slip up. So even though the orange team is up 2-0, it does end up being a close game. I think it ends 4-3. And we're going to start with a pretty good looking double tap attempt. I'm not sure why the teammate is up, but it looks like they would have scored if Tallybird from the other team doesn't get a piece of it like they do. And this is about as clean of defending as you can get from the orange team in a situation like this. When the ball's consistently flying above your head over the backboard, you're usually going to see a double commitment somewhere because of the uncertainty of where players can shoot. So on the orange team, we've got Brains defending low with about 60 boost. And even though he's got half a tank, he's only going to play a really light touch up onto the backboard. So he's playing passive. Because of that, that means Tallybird can take an aggressive touch out. And that way, if either of them misses, they've still got the defensive play covered. If you're going to double commit on defense, that's the right way to do it without taking on too many risks, because you have one player passive that's only worried about not letting it cross the goal line and one coming out to it. And even though this is great defense, the touches are still awkward, so the blue team should be able to maintain possession here, and they do with this 50. And this is where there's some confusion because Riker on the blue team has the right idea to infield pass this to Jared, but since the pass is a little bit behind him, the player we're watching should probably go up immediately just to clear up any confusion, because Jared in the center here is expecting his teammate behind him to put some pressure on this, but because he doesn't see anything coming or hear anything, he starts getting nervous, and because of that, he's going to stay in the play and try to prevent, a free touch from the orange team. Unfortunately, that 1 second of miscommunication means that this player gets sucked in too far. So when Jared loses the 50-50 and gets demoed, they're completely out of the play, and that split second is enough for the orange team to capitalize on a counterattack. And just to show you how unforgiving Supersonic Legend is, if this confusion happens, I'd say in almost any other rank, the player we're watching here can just turn back and the orange team is probably not going to score the redirect, and it's not a goal. But because everyone in SSL is so mechanically talented, all it takes is that 1 split second for players to capitalize on. And that's it for the video. Defensive mistakes at almost every rank. I want you guys to know that it doesn't stop happening when you get to Supersonic Legend. It just looks a little bit different. All of these players are constantly assessing themselves, judging their own mistakes, and trying to improve their game. I hope this video helps you do the same. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It helps get my video out to more people. If you have ideas on things you'd like to see or things that I can do to make the content better and more engaging, please let me know in the comments. If you want your replays included in the next video, follow me on Twitter. That's where I'll be tweeting out the kind of replays I'm looking for so we can get straight to the mechanics we want to explore together. And I have a creator code now. I'll put it on the screen. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.